If you get your news from the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC or the Washington Post, you probably think Trump is an extremist. But the truth is, he's actually extremely moderate. If you just look at his policy, he's much more like a 90s era Democrat than he is like a 2020s era Republican. And what I mean by that is, you look at where he is on abortion, 15 weeks. You look at where he is on immigration, controlling the border to protect working class wages. He's courting unions. He's courting black voters.
Welcome to another episode of Counterculture, the show that stands at the intersection of reason and faith in the battle against sentimentality. That was Biden in Detroit, Michigan, Biden-splaining to the assembled that the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 blueprint is the Mein Kampf to Trump's Hitler. It's fresh demagoguery from his comp shop, so we're going to have to be patient until he has said it enough times to where it becomes rhetorical muscle memory and he doesn't actually have to remember it. The thoughts and prayers and admonitions against political violence after the failed Trump assassination attempt will not have a long shelf life with Biden Inc. Their collective charge is to scare enough of the American electorate witless to the point of giving the similarly situated incumbent another term. For color on the Project 2025 policy paper, its relative importance to Trump and his potential presidency, and the likelihood of Biden's strategy being a successful one, we're pleased to be joined by Newsweek's deputy opinion editor, Batya Ungar-Sargon. Sargon is also the author of the book Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women. Batya, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if Trump and MAGA Republicans weren't enough of a boogeyman, certainly this nefarious secret plan that's in the public domain, Project 2025 put out by the Heritage Foundation, which Trump has in part repudiated as not the game plan that he's working off of. This has become more and more a part of the left's rhetorical scare tactics over the last several weeks. And I know you've written about it recently, so could you demystify it for us?
Yeah, absolutely. If you get your news from the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC or the Washington Post, you probably think Trump is an extremist. But the truth is, he's actually extremely moderate. If you just look at his policy, he's much more like a 90s era Democrat than he is like a 2020s era Republican. And what I mean by that is, you look at where he is on abortion, 15 weeks. You look at where he is on immigration, controlling the border to protect working class wages. He's courting unions. He's courting black voters. On LGBTQ issues, he's pro-gay. He's pro-gay marriage. On all of these issues, Donald Trump really sort of harkens back to the pro-labor, moderate, left position of the 90s. And what he's done is he took the GOP 2024 agenda and modeled it in his image. And so the GOP's 2024 agenda for the first time in 40 years does not have any pro-life language. It doesn't have anything against gay marriage. It commits to protecting Social Security and Medicare. And of course, these are all things that Project 2025, which is a very conservative Heritage Foundation project, differs from. So they are against the abortion pill. They ratify marriage as between a man and a woman. They believe in privatizing Social Security and Medicare. There's just so much of a gap between this bogeyman that the Democrats wish Trump was running on, because of course, if he was an extremist, it would be very easy for them to run against him. The truth is, he is a moderate, and so they have to lie about him.
Although I wouldn't call the Project 2025 plan extremist, so to speak. I mean, it's basically, a lot of it is conservative boilerplate that we've seen from the Republican Party and from conservatives in terms of policy agenda, hearkening back to at least Reagan. So, I disagree with Trump on some of these things, but I mean, to your point, fair is fair. It's not the position he's taking, so you actually have to address the position he's taking, not the position you wish he was taking.
That's exactly right. There were some people on the right who were upset that he took the pro-life language out of the GOP 2024 agenda because they're pro-life and they think that that's what their party should stand for. I think what Trump is trying to do is extremely interesting. What he's trying to say to the American people is, I am right down the middle. I am the centrist candidate. I am a unity candidate. I am a consensus candidate. I stand where 60% of Americans stand on every issue. And that is actually true. If you look at the polling and you look at Trump's positions, he is at the 50-yard line for every single issue. He is where the largest share of Americans are at. For example, 15 weeks on abortion. That is simply the consensus position for Americans. So I totally understand conservatives saying, hey, the GOP is supposed to be our party. And I think it's true. Trump is running more as an independent than he is as a true Republican.
Although I think he gets wider berth than a first-time candidate running would get, somebody who hasn't served as president or hasn't served in executive capacity and dealt with these issues because of his Supreme Court nominees in his first term. You know, so because he elevated Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, and because he really did a lot to advance the cause of the sanctity of human life from conception to natural death, particularly on the conception side, you know, he gets a little bit more latitude, I think, from a lot of conservatives to say, I see what he's doing, the positioning there. I understand the position is Dobbs overturned Roe. Now it's a matter for the states, and California is going to be different than Texas, different than Virginia, different than Florida, and that's how it's going to play out. And so, you know, he's smart in the sense that he is uniquely positioned to be able to take advantage of his prior good works and not deferring, but enlisting Leonard Leo then at the Federalist Society to put together the judicial recommendations for him and so forth. He brought conservatives in early, so now he has sort of the street cred to say, let me just massage these issues a little bit so we don't have to deal with them between now and November.
I think that's 100% true. I would caution conservatives about thinking that in the post-Trump era, which will be here probably in 4 years, if not, you know, in November, he'll probably win in November. But I would caution conservatives against trying to bring the party back to where it was before Trump, both on economics and on cultural and social issues, if only because it seems to me that the working class is now the Republican base. There really is not that kind of pre-Trump era, you know, Chamber of Commerce, extremely socially conservative, extremely economically liberal, free trade version of the electorate anymore. The working class is very middle of the road, tolerant, quite open on social issues, and quite protectionist on economic issues. And I think you really saw that in the primary, in the attempt by the Republican donor class to elevate Nikki Haley. She outspent Trump 2-1 and really got almost no traction at all. And to me, that sort of presages where the future is. If the Republicans try to go back to the pre-Trump version of the party, they're really going to effectively make the Democrats competitive again, is what they're going to do.
Well, right. And there's also no real appetite for sort of the corporatist Mitt Romney type Republican either, right? So that sort of stakes out putative conservative positions, but really isn't willing to go to bat for them and is more interested in engaging with DC rent seekers than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important to keep this stuff in mind. The idea of a Republican Party that wants to get involved in foreign wars again, the electorate is so not there anymore. In fact, it's so interesting because now it's almost like the Democrats are the ones pushing more foreign intervention and foreign wars on the Ukraine front, for example, and it's the Republicans saying, why is our working class paying for this? Why should our boys and girls fight for this? Why can't we focus on our country and what's best for us?
To the extent that we get past Biden's cognitive struggles and the failed assassination on Trump, I don't know how you get past those things exactly, but to the extent that any issues are sort of shoehorned back into this race in the closing months of the campaign after Labor Day, I mean, what do you sense is going to be the issue that is most advantageous to Trump to focus upon? Would it be the border?
You know, I had the privilege of watching the presidential debate in a room with 300 Republicans and 300 Democrats. And They were quite a well-educated elite population, but there were a few people there who were working class. And one woman in particular, Corey Zeck, who I know because she's profiled in my book, Second Class, she stood up and she said, this is very hard for me to say because I've always been a Democrat, but Trump's making a lot more sense to me. Trump is speaking to the issues that matter to me, and I think I might actually end up voting for Trump because it takes him a while to get there, but when he answers the questions, he's speaking my language. And I think what she was referring to was the border issues, which is a really big deal, inflation, making our economy the best economy it could possibly be again, and uniting us through success. That has really been the Trump campaign's number one slogan. Of course, you won't hear it if you get your news from the mainstream liberal media, but that idea of uniting us through success, I think, has been his through line. He's running on the American dream, and I think that's a winning campaign.
Yeah, I mean, that people, the elites, as you write about, sort of tend to forget, oh, yeah, that's right. The cost of biweekly groceries and filling up the car is 20, 25, 30, 35% higher than it was 4 years ago, which reduces the median household income in this country by almost 10% in terms of real dollars. And so, that's something where if you're not living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, you can get sort of pulled away from that as a big issue. But for much of middle-income America, that is the issue.
100%. Yeah, it's kitchen table issues. I think this is why Ron DeSantis didn't get any traction. He had no interest in talking about the economy. He only wanted to talk about cultural issues, and working class voters, they just don't need a politician to tell them what to believe and what to think. They're religious, they're socially moderate to conservative. They don't need to be told, woke is this, woke is that. They need to be able to afford groceries and to afford the American dream so that they have political power to pursue what they believe in, which is a moderate to conservative social agenda. What they need from their leader is to create an economy that makes the American dream a reality for them.
Yeah, I mean, the worry in part, though, and this would be a stylish problem to have because it would mean that Trump won. But the worry is, some of what you're hearing from some of those demographics where Trump is doing better than he did 4 years ago, and perhaps better than any Republican's done since Nixon. When it comes to people questioning, wait, you're spending all this money in Ukraine, but you're not investing in my community. You're spending all this money on people in this country illegally, but my kids are going to crummy schools. Some of the concern is that it's not such a philosophical divide between those constituencies. It's more of a who is first in line type of argument. It's like, I believe in government largesse, but I just want to be at the front of the line, not in the secondary or tertiary position. But in some of these cases, at some point, somebody's going to have to say, the government largesse is part of the problem.
From my interviews with working class people, they did not believe in redistribution. They didn't want more welfare. They didn't want to tax people and get that money, but they did believe in raising taxes on corporations and the rich, and this included Republican working class people, to pay off the deficit and to pay for things like healthcare, which they didn't see as welfare. So in some ways, I think both parties have it kind of wrong. Like the redistribution model that the Democrats think will help working class people, they hate that. They hate welfare. They don't want someone else's money. But the sort of trickle down economics, they don't like that either. They do think that people who are rich can afford to give more and that money should be used for the common good, not to be put in their pockets, not to give them, free food or free home or what have you, but in the national interest. They believe in protectionism. They believe in trade and immigration policy that puts American workers first. So it's not, they want small government. They don't like big government. They do see a lot of government waste and government abuse. But at the same time, they think that when the government acts, it should work to protect the American family.
So, I mean, in terms of, thinking about Trump's 4 years of Trump, or even if it's somehow it's not 4 years of another 4 years of Trump, I mean, the Republican Party is on this trajectory, as you say. You're not going to have a personality that's as dominant as Trump, because that's just such a high threshold. It's hard to imagine anybody on the scene could generate that kind of loyalty and following and enthusiasm, partly because it's hard to imagine anybody going through the last 8 years that Trump has gone through again. But I wonder how you think, like, if you have, some actual examples of who you think is poised to be the next generation of leadership for the Republican Party, because of course this is naturally at least a secondary part of the conversation for both parties with the respective nominees.
I think Marco Rubio, Josh Hawley, J.D. Vance, Tom Cotton, these are all guys who get it, who understand that, protecting the American family is an economic proposition. It means being pro-labor. It means supporting minorities in the working class. It means standing with the working man against the corporations. I mean, these are guys who are on the conservative side, but understand that, to have a country that protects American families and working people, you have to have a vision of what their struggles are and take those struggles seriously, and not just think that, everybody who's struggling, it's because, they're lazy or they don't want to work or what have you. These are all guys who I think have a really strong economic platform, as well as strong values, and really understand what made the Trump agenda work. And I think that they can take it into the next generation.
And it's sort of like that ruling class attitude that you write a lot about. I think that was one of the best encapsulations of, I think, what people are rejecting, and thus the opportunity that Trump has seized upon, was when Hillary Clinton, back in 2016, basically said to West Virginia miners who were being thrown out of work because of the Green New Deal agenda and eliminating coal as part of our energy economy, that they can learn to code. Being very dismissive about the financial future of others in sectors you've decided are to be vilified. That seems to have reshuffled the deck in terms of the political coalitions in this country as much as anything.
100%, and I think it goes the other way. I think for Republican lawmakers looking at the opioid crisis, looking at the breakdown of the family in Appalachia, maybe now they also understand what's happened in the Black community for years and where so much of the dysfunction in that community is coming from. It can also be a very unifying thing. I totally agree with you. I think that these are issues that really afflict large numbers of Americans, and we have to bring a lot of sympathy to that. The whole learn to code thing was so despicable, and we're seeing now just how despicable, because of course all of those jobs are now being automated through AI. And so even if it had worked, which it didn't, right, even if we would have needed all of these people to code rather than be plumbers, right, which we don't, we actually need plumbers and have a dearth of skilled trades folks, now all of those jobs are disappearing anyway. So the whole thing was just so ill-begotten.
Yeah, and thinking about that sector, and this actually dates back a while, doesn't it? I mean, it started. It feels like to me like Joe the plumber was the brake, and Biden McCain couldn't fully capitalize on it back in 2008, running against Obama. And it's been this sort of slow build as the left drifted further and further away from the proletariat, to use their nomenclature. Trump has come along, and this is a real realignment. This is not just a cult of personality. This is a realignment if the Republican Party maintains that America First policy agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people who have a problem with Trump's personality, first of all, what he did after he was shot, I mean, very few people on planet Earth could get shot and then stand up and make sure your first instinct is not, am I safe, but let me reassure the people that I'm okay, right? To prevent a civil war. I mean, that, first of all, you should, very few people could have done that, and that is inextricably linked to his personality. But also, where McCain and these guys fell short was maybe they understood the struggles of the working class, but they were unwilling to say, I'm going to take on both parties and give up on free trade. You know what I mean? I'm going to take on both parties and give up on this trickle-down economics, right? While also deregulating, while also lowering the corporate tax rate, because that increases employment, right? So really, you have to have the kind of personality that says, screw all of you, I'm going to do what I think is right in order to accomplish something this momentous.
Yeah, I mean, that the indelible image from that failed assassination attempt, that photograph that's already on T-shirts all over the country and will be at the entrance of the Trump Presidential Library too, undoubtedly. I mean, it really showed something. It really dispelled this idea that that is still held by some, I suppose, that Trump is just a paper tiger. And he clearly isn't. He clearly isn't just a marketer who's out for himself. That moment just showed so much about Trump, as you say. It was such a real tell into who he actually is and what a warrior he is, as if the last 8 years weren't enough. But that moment is just something that there's such an emotional connection now to him. And I think people who feel slighted by the way the system has been set up against them, man, I mean, it just solidifies their fealty to him in a way that is hard to describe.
100%. Somebody was tweeting about this. They made a really good point. They said, if anything happened on Saturday, it was the taboo around admitting that you like Trump or support Trump is now totally gone. And I think that is 100% true. I think it's his opponents who are on the defensive now. We really saw something astonishing and magnificent, a person just who's been touched by God. And I don't mean in any way to diminish the man who gave his life, horribly tragic, but we came within a quarter of an inch of a civil war. And I just think that there is a real sense of a desire for unity now. And Trump, who had a unity platform, can now truly become a unity candidate.
The other thing, too, and I wonder, just from your interviews for your book, Second Class, the Second Class Citizens, the dismissal of the classified documents case, this dismissal of those indictments, the rejection of the appointment of the special prosecutor in Florida, and the sense that regular Americans who you interviewed for your book have an innate understanding, even if they aren't steeped in federal statutory law and the rules governing the handling of classified documents and so forth. They just have a sense that the system has treated Trump unfairly, and if it can treat him unfairly, it can treat any of us unfairly, including me. And we really need somebody to sort of reestablish the rules of the game and see that they're administered in a fair way again.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways you can look at 91 indictments, right? You can look at 91 indictments and say, surely he's done one of these things, right? Or you can look at 91 indictments and say, wow, they really were not going to stop until they got him on something. And I think with every additional indictment, people moved from the first camp into the second camp, and it became less and less compelling. I know people who, after the raid on Mar-a-Lago, said, wow, I think I'm going to have to vote for this person. I know people who, after the conviction, said, Batya, I'm registering to vote as a Republican for the first time in my life. And, certainly now, after the assassination attempt, you're seeing so many people coming out and admitting publicly that they stand with this man because he has been martyred effectively by his opposition. And when someone has been martyred for the crime of wanting to improve your country, a lot of people, I think, feel that you should stand with him.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what Judge Merchan does on September 18th, that sentencing, if he really wants to double down and impose a significant prison sentence on Trump, which is what you would anticipate, because they have to cover their tracks and legitimize everything that they did. And if he does it, especially now, I think the boomerang effect to Trump's political benefit is going to be massive.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is that as they reverse these things, they call into question the whole premise of them, right? And so they can't proceed with them because they're so ridiculous. But on the other hand, in reversing them, they reveal themselves as the frauds that they are.
Yeah, they're all in at this point. And once you're all in, you can't go half out. We're going to see Batya Ungar-Sargon. She is the deputy opinion editor for Newsweek. The book, Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women. Batya, thanks so much for joining us on Counterculture. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And please leave a comment in the comment section. We'd love to hear your thoughts.